John Gauntner here, and welcome to my sake education video series. In my last video, and by the way, a link to that can be found in the description below, I talked about the very basics of sake rice and how it's fundamentally different from regular table rice. And in this video, I want to go a bit more deeply into the differences between sake rice and table rice. And as a super concise review, the differences between sake rice and table rice include size, starch content, fat content, and protein content, and positioning of that starch, and price as well. But there are other, more interesting and more profound differences as well. Let's look at those here. Let's begin with regionality. Japan has 47 prefectures, and almost every single one of them grow at least a little bit of sake rice. However, sake rice does not grow equally well everywhere. Japan is a very long country from northeast to southwest, and there's many different climates. Some are colder, some are warmer. And accordingly, each sake rice variety will have regions and sometimes even villages or even microclimates in which it grows best. Actually, in truth, you can grow just about any rice variety just about anywhere in Japan. However, if you want to maximize the qualities that enhance the potential of a given rice for brewing sake, you need to grow the rice in an ideal climate, and that will be different for each strain of rice. There are a number of factors that will make a particular locale good for growing sake rice. This includes, of course, and actually starts with, the soil. Very broadly speaking, soil can be roughly divided into clay-based soil and sandy soil. Most people say that great sake rice grows best in clay-based soil. However, there are those that have a different opinion as well. And not surprisingly, temperature is important as well. But rather than there being one ideal temperature range, some rice varieties grow better in warmer weather and others in colder climates. And again, to maximize the potential of a given rice variety for sake brewing, it needs to grow in its ideal temperature range. Also, sake rice, more than table rice, needs to grow in climates where the differences between the daytime temperature and the nighttime temperature are great. Hot days and cold nights help the starch concentrate in the center of the rice grains. This is an extremely important factor about which we hear quite a bit. It's so important because when the starches are concentrated in the center of the grain, it's easier to mill away the fat and protein outside of that and leave only the starch behind. Next, let's talk about the grades of quality for rice and the inspection necessary to attain those grades. All rice, be it table rice or sake rice, is inspected in Japan. For most rice, there are 3 grades of inspection, basically grade 3, grade 2, and grade 1 in ascending order. However, for sake rice, there's actually 2 grades above that, so a total of 5 grades for sake rice only. And next, if we look at the grades of sake, if a brewer wants to put the grade of sake on the bottle, in other words, Junmaishu Honjozo, Tokubetsu Junmai, Tokubetsu Honjozo, or one of the 4 types of ginjo, then the rice used in that sake must have passed inspection. It can pass any one of the 5 grades, but it must have passed one grade of inspection. If the rice does not pass inspection, then it cannot be used in making one of the special designation grades of sake. While this is likely to be more than you need to just go out and drink sake tonight, the 5 grades are, in ascending order, Santo, Nitto, and Itto, corresponding to 3rd class, 2nd class, and 1st class, and those are the 3 that are applicable to all rice. Then on top of that, there are Tokuto, which might be translatable as special grade, and the highest grade, Tokujo, which might be translatable as above and beyond special, unwieldy as that translation is. The grading is based on things like size and the proper development of the shape, content, and maturity of the grains. And while they may not factor into the final grade assessed to a rice, there are other things that are important as well. Water absorption, predictable solubility, and a centered shimpaku, or a centered starch packet, are also important factors in assessing the quality of a sake rice. And related to all of this, actually, you can grow any variety of rice just about anywhere in Japan, but that doesn't mean you can grow it well. If a particular rice strain does not grow well in a particular region, or if not enough of that rice is grown in that region, then it's difficult for the government to justify maintaining inspectors in that area. As such, if the quality of a given rice in a particular region is not so good, or if not much is grown, then the government will not keep that sake on the list of rice to be inspected for use in that region. And if that's the case, if a particular rice cannot be inspected in a given region, then that rice cannot be used to make tokuteme shoshu, to make special designation sake. In other words, because it isn't on the official list of rice that can be inspected in that region, it did not undergo inspection, so therefore it did not pass inspection. Again, brewers can use that rice to make sake, but they can't use one of the special designation sake terms on the label. By the way, rice that has not passed inspection is known as togaimai. The term togaimai is not a classification itself, but refers to rice that has not passed the inspection to qualify for one of those 5 grades. What percentage of all rice grown in Japan is one of the 120 or so proper sake rice varieties? Last year's numbers, the 2020 growing season, showed just under 2%. That's all. Another important thing to remember about sake rice is that rice can be shipped all over the country, legally and practically. In other words, brewers in a particular prefecture or region are not by any stretch of the imagination limited to using rice that grows locally. They're free to purchase rice from all over Japan and bring it into their prefecture and use it to brew sake at their brewery. And this happens with great regularity. The most obvious example of this is how many brewers from all over Japan use the well-known Yamada Nishiki rice variety grown in the locale in which it grows best, Hyogo Prefecture. But having said this, a lot of brewers do try to develop and use local sake rice. So there is an awareness of using local rice, and there is a movement towards using more and more local rice for a handful of good reasons. Still, brewers are permitted, legally and practically, to use rice grown anywhere in Japan. While many point out that this certainly does not contribute to the concept of regionality in sake, it is the way things have always been, and it is the reality in the sake world today. And that wraps up this video on a slightly deeper dive on the differences between sake rice and regular rice. In a subsequent video, we'll take on the topic of which is actually more important, rice or technique. And after that, we'll talk about the individual varieties of rice and what their special qualities are. Until then, enjoy your sake and kanpai.